Okay, let's move on. Are we ready?
Yeah.
Everything?
I think so.
Where is yours?
It's coming up.
Oh, okay, so we're on this screen now. Everybody see that one? Okay. All right. So our next presentation, Dr. Chen, has a BS and MS degrees in geography, as well as a PhD in environmental science, policy, and management from UC Berkeley. Joined the Department of Geography and Environment in 2007 and promoted to professor in 2017. His research focuses on the development and use of novel remote sensing and GIS technologies to address environmental issues such as climate change, land use, land cover change, sea level rise, and the mapping of natural resources and the environment. So welcome.
Thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. It's a great pleasure to present here. This is the first time for me to be in this room. It's huge, and also it's great to meet so many NDPTC friends and some Goro and other old friends I know before. So before starting my presentation, I want to acknowledge our founder, Pacific Southwest Region, UTC, University Transportation Center, and also NDPTC, especially Eric and Pam, who come to my office and teach me how to write a proposal. So, and also I want to thank Goro here, and who leads a state DOT and give me the data, and also NOAA for providing me the airborne LiDAR data. So without this, this project is not possible. So my project is about using combined mobile and airborne LiDAR data, try to produce a highly accurate DTM for assessing the vulnerability of transportation network to sea level rise and the flooding. Very long title. The reason I want to do this research is inspired by the fact that we are living in a coast area that is vulnerable to flooding, sea level rise, including chronic sea level rise, and also like the storm surge or flash flooding caused by extreme weathers like hurricane. And based on the recent 2017 Hawaii sea level rise vulnerability and adaptation report, and the sea level rise and flooding is a very important issue in Hawaii. You can reduce number, cause a big economic loss, especially for the transportation network. You know, there's about 38 miles of road is under water if the sea level rise by 3.2 feet, about 1 meter. So, so I want to see where this road, whether we can use the latest technology to kind of map kind of inundation area and to see simulate the impact of sea level rise. So the key input for this sea level rise simulation inundation analysis is DTM, so digital terrain model, which is probably the most widely used GIS data. It's critical for so many different areas, and especially it's the key input, the main input for flooding and hydrological analysis. So we need a very accurate DTM. So what is considered the best technology for generate accurate DTM? Back in the beginning of this century, around the 2000 or even earlier, maybe 1997, about 20 years ago, the United States, start to use a technology called airborne LiDAR, try to map the coast area and to do this kind of work. So after 20 years, we're still kind of using this technology. Consider this is the state of the art. In Hawaii, I think the data was collected maybe about 10 or 15 years ago, and this shows this graph shows that how important accurate DEM is in terms of characterize the topography variation. And the bottom is the traditional DTN, which is generated from aerial photography. So in Hawaii, we have 10-meter DTN generated from aerial photography. And now NOAA and Ross here is like coordinating effort, try to collect data for Big Island, Kauai, Maui, and try to using LiDAR data to update the DTM, get a much more accurate DTM. So you can see that in the difference is obvious. So we should use this for technology for dual cellularize and producing a good DTM. In terms of like using good DTM for cellularize, my group, especially one of my grad students, has worked with her and published a lot of paper before, and using the LiDAR data collected around maybe 2010, to do some cellularize analysis starting Waikiki, later into Maui. So we published a few papers to do that. So, and there is a grant opportunity come up, and so I know from the college, and then so now there's a call for using addressing transportation issues. And I was thinking, what we can do, because we have published paper before with airborne LiDAR. Is there anything new we can do with using new technology? And then I thought of like mobile LiDAR. I got to know mobile LiDAR when I was working with a visiting professor in my lab, and we tried to map the power line on the street. I do vegetation study. I want to get rid of power line, and then we need a methodology to map the power line. And only the good data set that can map power line, it will be mobile LiDAR. So I contacted Goro, who was very generous to give me the data. So I played with the mobile LiDAR before, but not for transportation analysis, cellularize analysis. So when this grant opportunity come up, I'll say maybe this is the time, maybe think well, use this data set for another purpose. We can use it for addressing cellularize issues. So you can see this is the example of the mobile LiDAR data on the street of Oahu. And all the road marking is very clearly visible. And the signs and power line, which is something I was concerned before. And of course, you can see even the curve. So all those kind of detailed road features is visible in the mobile LiDAR. So maybe we can take advantage of these details provided in this data set to see how can we improve the analysis of cellularize. So if you want to see like how good it is, you will see the difference clearly if you compare an airborne LiDAR versus a mobile LiDAR for the same street. So obviously, it's an amazing data set. It's so much detail, right? So, but maybe you may ask why. So the mobile LiDAR is available. Goro just mentioned the data was collected in 2009, like every year. So yeah. So why don't we use the mobile LiDAR itself to do mapping, create a DTM model, and do cellularize analysis? Why do you have integrating airborne LiDAR? So that's the topic of my research. There's two reasons. The first reason is, first of all, the mobile LiDAR is collected on the vehicle, so you only see what you can see on the street. So anything blocked by the building or tree on the street, actually behind that is kind of hard to visible. So if we want to do some hydrologic analysis, we want to, for example, flooding, right? So extreme rainfall, we need to complete the DEM. And the airborne LiDAR will fill in those gaps that the mobile LiDAR cannot provide. So usually off the street, on the mountain, right? So we need to combine these two. And secondly, although this mobile LiDAR data is so detailed, and I have not seen research has been really using, as far as I know, using this data set in the environment analysis. Also in the literature, I have not seen I'm not sure like really how good it is. It seems obvious, but to me, if the accuracy, it means two things. So accuracy is the opposite of error. So error has bias and uncertainty, random error, right? So maybe this has good accuracy, like a low uncertainty, but it may have bias in the data set, right? So we want to assess the error exists in the data set and to see like whether we need to, if there's error, how to minimize that error. So that we can combine the advantage of both. So in terms of using mobile LiDAR data, and Gaurav just mentioned, the data files are huge. In remote sensing, we talk about aerial photography is huge, but the airborne LiDAR is even much bigger. Airborne LiDAR, mobile LiDAR compared with airborne LiDAR is 1,000 times more bigger. So one typical file for airborne LiDAR is maybe a few hundred megabytes, and this is 1,000 times more for the same, if we cover the same area. So that's the first very practical, like a real challenge, right? And then, although the LiDAR data give you a lot of detail for the road surface, but also there's some other details actually. For example, for power line, we need the power line, but actually for DTM, I don't need that. I don't need the road sign. I don't need there's cars showing on the street, which does not really make a difference in my serialized simulation. So we need to get rid of those things. So although it's information for one user, but actually it's noise or unwanted, undesired feature for my purpose. So my research has 4 objectives, and the first is try to kind of analyze, explore, check the accuracy or the error of mobile LiDAR data, and if there's a bigger error in the mobile LiDAR data, how to reduce the error as much as possible, and then once the error is reduced, I want to compare with airborne LiDAR data, and then how can we integrate these two and generate a seamless, high-quality DTM. And finally, of course, the goal is try to use the integrated DTM, try to do some serialized simulation. So my study area is actually very small. Is located in the East Wahoo near Hawaii Kai. There's a few boxes there, and the blue box is a transect of a road, highway. Not highway, is a major road there. We have the mobile LiDAR, and the green box, the bigger green box is the the airborne LiDAR data coverage. So my original idea, after discussing with Eric and the Pam, is we maybe create a kind of watershed level DTMs by integrating the airborne LiDAR from the whole upper watershed and also in the low-lying land where the mobile LiDAR is available. But I'm focused on the area that actually the both exist, which is on the road. So just some basics about LiDAR system, which will help for us to understand the issue later on. Airborne LiDAR system usually has 3 major components. Of course, the key is the laser scanner, which is send the laser pulse out, measure distance. And on the airplane, there's a GPS, and also there's another GPS on the ground. These 2 GPS simultaneously work together, try to resolve the position of the airplane very precisely. And there's RMU, inertial measurement unit, that measures the altitude, which is the orientation of the airplane when the laser pulse is shooting out. So these 3 technology together and produce the colorful point cloud as shown in the very beginning. The reason I mentioned this is if any one of these system does not work well, and then we have a problem in our data. For example, if the GPS signal is disturbed, and then my point data also has a large error. If the RMU is not of high quality, and then my position solution also have some problem. And if the laser scanner is not high end, also of course they have error as well. So we should keep that in mind when I later try to analyze the data quality of the LiDAR data. And So pretty much all LiDAR system, no matter it's on the airplane or on the vehicle, or even nowadays, people put a LiDAR system on the backpack. They can walk in the building and measure, create a building information model. They all pretty much have the same component I just mentioned, a GPS and IMU and the laser ranging finder. So that's the same for mobile system. So this is a typical configuration for mobile system. Actually, Goro showed earlier, and there's a laser scanner on the back, and the GPS. Maybe one in the back, one in the front. These two kind of help to determine the orientation of the vehicle, and then there's sometimes the camera on it. There's IMU on the system as well. And this is some picture and showing the GPS and IMU maybe here. And this is for the mobile system, there's a distance measurement unit. In case you're driving in a tunnel and you lost the GPS signal, and then this can help you to find the position. It's not the best solution, but it at least can compensate error. So this is some realistic issue when you collect the data on the ground compared to on the airplane. So this is the example of the LiDAR data this is the data for my start area. So the airborne LiDAR data was collected in 2013, and the point density is about the 2.5 points per meter square. And this is the colorized based on elevation. Red stands for high elevation, and the blue stands for low elevation. And this is the mobile LiDAR data, which was collected by the Mandalay, the contractor that provide data for the state, DVX system. Well, the data was collected in 2016, and the point density compared to the airborne LiDAR, 2.5 points per meter square, which is 3,334 points on average points per meter square. So it's more than 1,500 times more dense. And I'd like to mention also, when the DOT collect the data, the contractor collect data, they drive from one direction and they come back and they drive the other direction. So you have data from both ways. So I try to use both data, try to collect data, because you can see that if you drive on the one side and the other side, actually point density degrade quickly. So if you combine both, we'll have a much better information and more details. So this is the example of the data from the other direction. So this is a brief summary of all the key information. Point density, and for the mobile LiDAR, it's every 2 centimeters, that's 1 point. And for the airborne LiDAR, is every 0.6 meter have a point in terms of the average spacing. And the file size for mobile LiDAR is 3.8 gig. It's not much bigger than the airborne LiDAR because this is only a road section, and the airborne LiDAR is the whole watershed. So otherwise, it will be a few thousand times more. So get back to my original research objective. So the first one, I want to check how much error exists in the mobile LiDAR. It's obviously gorgeous data set, beautiful, and is there any error? If yes, how much error, right? So before I talk about error, I want to look at the laser scanner itself. So this is the Velodyne HDL32 LiDAR sensor mounted on the system. And that sensor sends 32 beams simultaneously out. So we call it like a beam is consumed a channel. So when the data collected for each beam might not, the data might not register or calibrate super well, so may cause some issues. Okay, so each beam have a solution of position, but if each beam is calibrated with this, it's the angle, and that will have cause some issue. And another thing we want to understand the hardware system is, Goro mentioned that recently, started from 2016, there's a twin sensor, right? So it used to be only one sensor in the back. Now we have two sensors on the back, on left and the right, on the same vehicle. We're trying to get a more better coverage. So we should keep this in mind when we try to understand the error. So I want to see like what if we look as, for example, a wall and see like check the data and see like how the data differ from different spin of the same sensor or different data from the two sensors. So this is a bird view, top-down view of a wall near the street. Okay, so this line, that's a wall. So one beam is very straight, the wall is straight. So the data is very good quality if we look at one beam. But if we look at all the 32 beams together from the sensor, and actually we combine the two laser scanning data set together, you see the wall getting fatter. That not mean the wall grow, and that the fatness or the width is about like 20 to 30 centimeters. Okay, so that's caused by pretty much by the calibration. You know, it's the sensor. This sensor is I don't know the price. It's not very expensive. Maybe in the order of thousands of dollars. Okay. And these two sensors, when calibrated, when put on the left and the right corner, you know, they have to resolve those called the alignment issue. You know, if the sensor is not well aligned, calibrated, and then of course the data is not matching well. So these two factors, using two sensors, using different channels from the one sensor, actually produce a kind of a random error. You know, since random, right? About 20 to 30 centimeters. So that's the finding I found for analyze that. And then what about like I collect the data at one time, or drive in this direction and come back and collect the same data set but in a different direction. So how does it differ? And we collect data both ways because first of all, you know, at a different time, GPS satellite in space kind of move around. So the solution also kind of differ, right? And different direction maybe kind of different view factor. You know, some maybe on this way maybe have a better sky view. The other direction may not, and has a different sky view. So the GPS signal might be different, right? So if we look at compare the data set from both directions for the same area, how much kind of difference exists in the data? Okay, so this is the east and west driving direction data set for the same street. And if I choose a road surface, hard surface, and do analysis as shown on this figure. So on the top is the bird view of a small section, and on the bottom is the vertical view. So you see that the two data and there's two on the high surface, on the road surface, there's two layers of points. One is from the east, the other from the west. And how much difference exists between these two data sets and two center points is about, in this case, 0.215 meters. Okay, so again, this seems obviously is not random anymore because every point is above the other, not like randomly distributed to each other, right? So it's the bias if we drive from one direction compared to the other one. So you may think, oh, this 0.215, is that some like bias? If it's bias, if it's constant everywhere, we can apply that bias and correct one data set, and then we merge these two, right? But the fact is, if I analyze the distance between the two set of data points, point by point, the nearest point distance, I found that kind of the difference vary over space, even over that road section. So this is a histogram showing that what is the point-to-point distance from one data set to the other, the nearest 2 points from this data set, and how that nearest distance vary over space across all the data points. So your history is showing that, you know, there's some area, you know, it's a lot of area has a distance or a bias up to 0.3, even 0.4 or 0.5. So the majority maybe is like is less than 0.1, but there's quite a bit of an area of data actually has the bias of up to 0.2, 0.3, 0.4. And so it's not a constant, first of all. Sometimes it could be bad, okay? So how can we address this issue? There's no single threshold bias correction method, right? So now get to my second object. So we identify error in the data. With some is kind of more or less random, some is more consistent, but consistent in terms of like locally scale, but the over space that bias also vary, right? How can we remove that error or reduce it? So for these three type of error, the first two you see is kind of more random. That error can be addressed relatively well by averaging, okay? And for the third one, which is the focus of my my project, is how can we remove the bias? And it's challenging because it's unpredictable and it's kind of data dependent. You know, you cannot expect that same history apply to everywhere, right? So we need some data dependent, case dependent approach, but hopefully that method is kind of automatic. So that was the question. And the solution I use in the end of the project is I'm using an algorithm called iterative closest point, ICP. And this algorithm actually is not the latest innovation. It actually was introduced many years ago, 1992, by a few scholars in the field of computer science, and this method is actually very simple. So basically, using one data set as a reference, and then for the I try to move the second data set to match the first one, based on a few steps. First of all, for every point within that moving data point cloud, and find the nearest point and the reference point cloud. And then based on the distance, and then you based on some minimization criteria, and try to decide like how much rotation or translation the point cloud should have in terms of like getting closer to the reference point cloud. And you cannot do it like in one step. You have to be iterative. So, and you do this like once find the translation, the rotation, and then transfer the point cloud, and then repeat the process, which means like find the nearest point, calculate the rotation and the translation, and then gradually match to the data set. So that's how it works. When this process will stop, it's based on some this kind of a parameter, a threshold you choose. So, for example, I will stop the moving of the data set after the iteration exceed reach 1,000 times, or when the move of the rotation, each increment of rotation and angle is smaller than a threshold as specified. For example, for this mobile lidar east-west direction data matching, I use a threshold like 0.001, like 1 millimeter. Every time it moves less than that threshold, the angle rotation less than very small angle, and then I will stop it.
Do you filter out the cars?
That's a good question. Something I will do later. Yeah. Okay, so that's how it works. I don't want to get bored by this algorithm, but just a few slides to show that how this works. Hypothetically, two point set of points, and then try to. You first actually to make it work very quick, to be super effective, you have to move one data set, try to getting as closer to the other data set as possible. That's why you have a big error there. So starting from there will be the algorithm will converge much quickly. So this will start from here, find the nearest point, estimate the rotation, the translation, so transfer the point, and then decide a move, and the move. So sometimes it's a big step, sometimes a small step, so all dependent, it's data dependent. And then until you finally you will kind of match this data set. That's how this method works. So this is the final alignment matching vector. So this is not new. That's not my innovation. This was invented in 1992. So well, if this is like a magic solution to our data set, the answer is not necessary. They actually, as I have said at the very beginning, you have to like make it quickly converge. You have to like give a very good initial estimate. And that seems very easy, like give an initial estimate, move one point cloud to the other, but don't remember the fact that I mentioned at the very beginning. We have like where every square meter, 2,000, 3,000 points. And if you do it, like even you open some like 3D points in ArcGIS and Center software, work with billions of points, every small move actually take seconds, minutes. So even cannot get it done. So that's actually pretty challenging when you start working with like a massive data set like this. So it's kind of data set we usually do not work with at that scale. So the billions of points and visualization. So and it's sensitive to the the point cloud. Actually, if near the road is very dense, but as long distance move away from the street, and the density decrease dramatically. And actually, that algorithm does not work well for that kind of situation. And of course, there's some like cars and some other issues we should be also cause problem. So some's good, but actually when you use it, and actually has a problem. So in the project, I spent like a long time and find a way like to try how it works, like what's the best way to make it work, and even to try and error take a lot of time. So there's a few strategies I use to try to speed up the process, increase the accuracy, and the level of automation. So one simple strategy I used is, so this is a huge data set. Do we need so much data? Maybe we can reduce it. So what a simple strategy is, I do a lot of forest research. In forestry, we usually like model the tree by, instead of working individual points, we can put the individual voxel. Voxel is cubes. I can set this cube to be very fine, very small size, and find the point within each cube and calculate the average coordinate XYZ, and then I'll reduce the data set. That way probably will not reduce my data quality much. Okay. For example, on the road surface, anyway, it's kind of more or less on the plane, right? So if I calculate the points on the plane surface and calculate the average will still close to the mean on the surface. So that will significantly reduce the data set. Another thing is like the data, like uneven point density. Simple strategy is like on the lower left, you see like points move further from the street to get various spots, right? So simple strategy is just focus on the points on the road. So hand draw the road center and create a buffer of like 20 meters, which the road width, and then cut the points. Only analyze these points within it. So this kind of a simple strategy, actually, it will significantly improve the efficiency. So that's actually kind of the solution, more or less. And there's other detail. I don't want to bore you guys, but that's pretty much some method I try to improve the workflow. So now I have a workflow, try to match this data set, and actually the result is pretty good. And now I still need to try to see how this data set compared to airborne LiDAR data. So that's with the third objective. And so this is some figures show a section of the road in mobile LiDAR. So you can see that this kind of like bump thing, whatever. Actually, maybe it's caused by moving car. When this vehicle is moving forward, there's a car also moving along you. So you see that long stripes, okay? And you can see that on this mobile light, a lot of detail like a traffic light and electric poles, and it's all visible. And airborne LiDAR is still kind of one of the best, right, nowadays. And you can still see the power, the traffic light, if you can compare these two. Although it's less dense, but it still is visible, right? So these two data sets, can we simply like put together and then create a DTM? The answer is not necessary. So, any question? Yeah. So anyway, you put two together, you can see that that traffic light horizontally on the left side is of the bird view. They have an offset of 2.58 meters. That's 3 meters horizontal shift, like 2 to 3 meters. That's actually unacceptable if we want to do like really engineering type of analysis. Now, but for serial ride, you may think, oh, maybe that's not an issue. I work on the vertical dimension, right? But if there's a slope, any horizontal shift will cause a vertical shift as well. So that's a problem. Vertically, I think there's also tens of maybe 20 to 30 centimeter difference. So we cannot simply combine these two, put together and average them, create a DM. That will cause some artifacts. So how to solve this problem? I think you probably know the answer already. Because ICP, right? So with the ICP, we be able to match this point cloud. So we can, why don't we? There's another point cloud. We can match them, right? So actually, it turns out work pretty well. So because you can see, this is the traffic light, and before registration, they have offset a few meters, but after registration, is well registered. So to do this kind of processing using ISB is much quicker, and because the data volume is less. But that's not the only one part of the process. So a matches to points, but the DTM is not a point. It's a raster. It's continuous surface. We still need to. There's so many points. The DTM is only referring to the ground surface, right? So some points from the tree, from the building, we need to only get the ground point. So that's actually my research area of focus. I have my own method. But in the urban setting, I find my method is not working as well as the ArcGIS solution. And ArcGIS has a tool that my method works for in the mountainous area with a lot of tree, and for the urban area, and this actually keeps the curves very well. And ArcGIS has a tool called the classify last ground. There's 3 options: conservative, aggressive, standard. Basically, what it means that if there's always, like we call it, omission and commission error. If you keep a lot of ground points, you have the risk of including non-ground as ground. That's called a commission. If you remove this like a tree, building, cars, and you have the risk of remove the ground points as well. So it's hard to balance both. Okay, so that's why they give us 3 options. You have to try and error. Okay, but I also try and error and try this method. I found that if I first run the standard method, standard option, and then later on and try the aggressive option, that will keep a lot of ground points from the curve and even the ground in the middle. So that's kind of I find that the solution works relatively well. And once we find the ground returns, we generate a continuous surface. Because the point density is pretty high, so I use a very simple solution. Also a tool available in ArcGIS called the last data set to raster, which basically beam the data to the ground points to 0.2 meter. So that's how I generate the DTM. If there's any hole, there'll be some like a team-based approach try to fill it. So this is the final DTM for the study area. You cannot see much because the elevation range is high from 0 to 300. But we are looking for small details like the elevation or elevation variation on the road surface. So that scale is the range is too big to show the difference. That's why on the right side, I take a small section and it does show the data, does capture the road elevation difference. And I found that if we generate the hill shift from the DTM is even better. Is even better to see the result. So on the top is using a DTM generated from the LiDAR data only. On the bottom is from LiDAR and mobile LiDAR combined. So almost the same, right? But if we zoom in, you will see the difference. Okay, so on the top is just airborne LiDAR. You see this kind of artifacts caused by sparse, relative sparse point density. But if you're using mobile LiDAR, you can see kind of smooth surface that we kind of expect on the road. At least looks fitter, right? So I generated DTM. So the last step is trying to do simulation of sea level rise impact analysis. So sea level rise is reference to the sea level. The problem is the sea level is never steady. Okay, so we need a reference to data to the local data, and the LiDAR data I used here actually is reference to an ellipsoid instead of a local tidal data. So how can we do some more realistic simulation of sea level rise? So a simple solution is take the data, this data set actually cover the road and the watershed, but also the water. There's a return from the water. And currently the water area shows an elevation of 16.8 meters. The water elevation is 16.8. That's not mean the water is 61. Is reference to not reference to the water. It should be 0 if it's reference to water, right? So we simply use that as subtract all the data with a constant of 6.8 with the constant value, and use that as a reference to do this to sea level rise simulation. So, and the methodology from now is very simple. I just see how much area is 1 meter or half meter, 1.1 meter above the local water surface, and see where the area will be under that threshold, which means the area has risk of sea level rise when the sea level rise by that amount. So this is some figures show the result, and on the top is using 1 meter sea level rise compared to the local water level, and but using DTM from airborne LiDAR. And the bottom is 1 meter using the DTM from mobile and airborne LiDAR. Again, pretty much don't see much detail because it's kind of long, and we needed to actually zoom in to see the difference. But overall, it's pretty kind of similar. That is expected because my reference is airborne LiDAR. I match all the data to the airborne LiDAR. There should not have a big difference. So this is 1 meter. This is the area we've inundated when the sea water rises 1 meter above the current water. So if I raise by further 0.1 meter, 10 centimeters, there's a lot more area we've inundated. So that indicated the area of change compared to the vertical change is big. So actually this area indeed, of course, is sensitive to sea level rise. And if we do more, raised by 0.3 meter, and this almost everywhere is inundated, including a lot of road surface. And 0.5 meter, 0.7, 1.7, 2 meter, if it's 2 meter above water surface, that the whole section, including the neighborhood, will be kind of in the water. So what's the advantage of combining airborne and mobile LiDAR data? I can use do the same kind of result with airborne, right? That's actually an open question. I don't know, at the very beginning when we start the project, how much improvement you will make, But if we zoom in, we do see some difference, right? If we zoom into section see if the sea level rise by 1.5 meter above sea level, and the result from the combined data set is different from the airborne LiDAR, and the airborne LiDAR is seems more artifact, not smooth, less seems realistic, and from the combined data set it seems more continuous, more realistic. So that's all the conclusion I make, because I don't have independent data set to evaluate the quality of airborne LiDAR. That would cost a lot more. And but intuitively, I think it makes sense. It does provide more detail. The simulation result is kind of better to me. So conclusion, and as I have said, there's not many people have used this gorgeous data set. I have not identified any paper about using this for serialized analysis using mobile LiDAR. So this is probably one of the first, maybe the first. And there's several important findings I don't know before I start the project. First of all, the mobile LiDAR data, although it's highly dense, is more than 1,000 times denser than the airborne LiDAR, which already is great. But actually, the error is actually kind of relatively big. So that comes from the error comes from different sources. It depends on the sensor you're using. If you're using 30 beam, then if each different beam, maybe it causes some random error. And also using two sensors on the same vehicle increase the point density, but at the same time also kind of make the surface maybe thicker. But the bigger problem is caused by collecting data at a different time. If you want to do like road change, like how this road can evolve over time, and actually the road is the same road, but the data is different, right? So we need to find some way to really address this problem if you want to do some temporal time series analysis. So and also mobile LiDAR data has even bigger difference compared to airborne LiDAR. That's probably because of using different GPS. One is on the ground, one is on the in air, and also because of the quality of IMU. IMU is very, the airborne LiDAR system is like hundreds of $1,000s, but the mobile LiDAR is maybe a few thousands or like tens of thousands the most. So this all cause some problems. So, but the reason I use airborne LiDAR because it has much better equipment in the order of like more than 1 million, the system, and the mobile LiDAR system usually is hundreds of thousands. So if we needed to adjust this kind of geometric error in the data, the airborne LiDAR is a very good source to as a reference. And I found that ICP, although it's kind of seems like old method, but actually works pretty well as long as you understand the algorithm well and be able to pre-process the data, make it remove this area that has an irregularity, and so try to that will really significantly reduce the time in data processing and also increase the accuracy. And I think although the final DEM result based on airborne LiDAR and versus airborne plus mobile LiDAR seems to DTM result, simulation result, serialized simulation result seems similar, but I still feel that we already spent so much money to collect the data, right? And we don't need to pay extra money to purchase mobile LiDAR data, but you can see that if we combine with the mobile airborne LiDAR data and we create a geo-referenced high quality mobile data set, not only used for checking the local condition, but also put in a GIS database, everyone can use it. So I think it's the strategy of combining airborne and mobile LiDAR is effective, is useful, and you increase the value for the mobile LiDAR data set, and then create some detailed surface model for whatever application we may encounter. I don't know right now, so, but I think we have some data set available. So, sorry. Yeah. Already. Anyway, so that's all I have. Thank you all, and for me have the opportunity to do the research and to present to everyone, and I'm happy to take your questions. Yes.
So, Chief, one of the things that we talked about and what we tried to address this year was the airborne LiDAR has the ground base station, right? Mm-hmm. And so on Nimitz, what we tried to do was also put combine the ground base stations to correct. And so that might...
you mean ground station means ground station or some ground control point?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah. So, that's what we tried to do on Nimitz, right, this time around. So to try to address the area.
Yeah.
As far as the inertial system is the Trimble Pos LV system.
Yeah.
It's not a cheap system.
Yeah.
And LiDAR, and when we got that LiDAR system, the HDL 64 in 2008, that was a $250,000 piece of equipment. It's gone down very
Yeah,
fast
yeah,
now. I mean, now
yeah.
the cost of LiDAR has really dropped.
Yeah, yeah. So you're right. I mean, if we have some good control points that really can fix the mobile LiDAR, but of course it's a cost issue. So I think we still, right now the current issue is airborne LiDAR in my research considered a reference, but actually the reference, the NOAA, the contractor who collected it for NOAA, and they have some accuracy report, like maybe horizontally 0.2 to 0.3 meter, vertically 10 centimeter, and that's the average, and across their control point. And does not represent the accuracy locally in certain area. If we want to increase the accuracy for a certain road section, a sub area in the region, we can put more control points, and then we can calibrate the airborne LiDAR. So like make
And
it
also tie it to actual
so usually
the sea level too.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
'Cause there's it's not tied to actual sea level now, right?
Yeah, it's not, so that's relatively easy, but the problem is that right now they maybe have some shift or rotation compared to one to the other, especially horizontal, more vertical, more or less like translation. Yeah. So if we add more control points, that will really like improve the geometric accuracy, both horizontally and vertically, of the mobile LiDAR. Right now, by itself, it's too much. Within itself, it's a few tens of centimeters, and compared to airborne LiDAR, a few meters. So we can first like do a relative orientation, pretty much, to match everything to the airborne, and then we can calibrate better the airborne. So that would be a really high grade BPM.
Yeah, I mean, what we're all talking about too is matching the data and the tools to the application, right?
Yeah.
For this application that you're doing, mobile LiDAR, it seems like it's overkill and not as valuable. For other applications, especially for road projects,
Yeah.
the aerial LiDAR is not sufficient because there's a lot of obstructions.
Yeah.
Whether it's like tree canopies,
Mm-hmm.
urban
Yeah.
canyons.
Yeah.
We go in tunnels.
Yeah.
We're underneath the viaduct.
Mm-hmm.
The airborne LiDAR will not get the road underneath the viaduct.
Yeah. So I think you mentioned before, like the resurfacing project. So I think the airborne LiDAR combined with this really make it detailed, but also has a low bias everywhere. So put some control points. So it will be very variable data set for that kind of engineering
application.
Part. Yeah. For serialized right now, even for more airborne LiDAR, we can get a high accuracy, but we need more money to put more control points. So if somebody cares that kind of accuracy, I think.
I think with the ICP, isn't the major challenge finding the reference file or the reference set that you're using?
So reference is just using one as a reference.
Right.
The match. So the other is called moving whatever source or target. Target is the reference. The one point cloud is the reference or the target. The other is the point cloud to be moved. They automatically identify nearest point.
And it doesn't matter which point is the reference, it can be any, or?
I have not tried. I think it should be, because this method is really sensitive, like to the initial solution. Even using choose one, as always use this as target. The other is reference. Depending on how you want to give the initial aspect, the result will be different. I think even that kind of difference, even the bigger, than like change one as a reference, the other as target. So that's why I didn't try to change it. But in the end, you can see that both data sets kind of align relatively well. I didn't show the result from the two mobile LiDAR, but the two mobile LiDAR also actually works very well. but actually it's really time consuming.
Yeah, I guess,
So it take a lot of time.
I guess from our side, the application that we're interested in is if the conditions have changed.
Yeah.
And so, like, for example, if there's subsidence or
Yeah.
really.
You need to find some target that's permanent,
Yeah.
Right,
you know?
right.
So it's always like dynamic, and then you have to make it a big area, so that big area includes some more permanent. So it's like control point.
Yeah.
The same idea.
And what, we discussed some of this, right? Bridge abutments, things like that.
Like benchmark.
Also, the whole idea is to, move it, the initial pass is to move to one data set closer to another, right? And then try to match up the points. But wouldn't that actually kind of changes the, especially when we are looking at the vertical displacement, and if we are looking at the sea level rise, that's why I think you had to, recalibrate to the 0 level sea level rise, because, you're throwing off the whole vertical match, because you're just arbitrarily putting one data set closer to another, right?
If
So shouldn't
I
there be
if I
another
understand
sort of-
right, you're referring to the local sea level, the
Yeah.
vertical data, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a very big issue. So, like where is the local tidal data and local reference is very hard in Hawaii. I think there's only one benchmark set up in Honolulu, like Pearl Harbor somewhere. So, yeah, so it has to be kind of locally relevant. I think maybe the more, if we choose a local surface as a reference, maybe more relevant to local people compared to a sea level and a different place on the island. So it's not a consistent method over the whole island, but they also maybe have some advantage just using the local surface, current local surface. Although the local surface actually changed, but in the morning, the evening it changed. So this is kind of a test. I mean, we can fix this by choose some other benchmark. That's easy, right? But that's not the big issue technologically. Yeah, as long as we can find that point, find that reference, always like reference to that. A good question.
Your data sets were 3 years apart.
Yeah.
Were there any changes that made that matter?
I don't. That's a good question. So for that area, and is there any kind of road?
Well,
Where
in Hawaii, not really.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
we did a
possible.
research project.
Yeah, it's possible.
It's
Yeah.
possible.
That's why we had, and I think we all points to the same issue. Like find some like common target that is more permanent.
GPS data is time dependent.
Nothing absolutely permanent. Even for some benchmark.
We could have given him data closer to the aerial data, but we just gave him the latest one. He didn't ask for, I mean, if I would have known that, I mean, we could have done that. But we were just seeing first what type of algorithms would kind of.
Next time.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, our next project is Nimitz, right?
yeah. We should work on that.
Yeah.
Yes.
This might be for Goro as well. What kind of like GPS unit are you using on the mobile LiDAR?
Actually, there's several GPS units now. We're trying to outfit every sensor with its own unit, including the pavement scanners, to try to correct the positional error relative to the overall vehicle, right? So, I have the specs. I don't remember them all. Well, they are changing. The inertial unit is a POS LV system. It's a Trimble solution. It's military grade. It's pretty well tested over years. We've been using that type of solution since we started. It's a pretty robust solution. I mean, when we go through H3 and we have no GPS, it gives us a pretty true path through the tunnel, both horizontally and vertically. I mean, as we come out, and GPS, of course, you're not going to get GPS in a tunnel, right? So,
I think in my research report, there is some name of the GPS, but I forgot. And also that the GPS solution, so Trimble solution, there's another kind of solution.
It's all Trimble. I mean, yeah,
That also
it's all
makes
Trimble.
difference. Yeah.
It's a tightly integrated Trimble solution. I mean, from the inertial unit to the vehicle positional movement we've just stayed with the Trimble solution. And the reason being is that they have post-processing software where we can integrate the data, because you'll see when the vehicle is bouncing quite a bit, right? And that will impact the position of the points too. So we use the post-processing software to correct for that. If we had multiple different GPS, the software solution isn't as easy to utilize. I can give you the specs for that if you want.
I did that too. So I put it in the report.
Questions?
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you to our presenters once again.